إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم وَمَن يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ فَقَدْ فَازَ فَوْزًا عَظِيمًا. Amma ba'd, we start in the name of Allah, the Most High, the one to whom belongs all praise, the one who controls all affairs, the one who gives, the one who takes, glorified and exalted is He. And we send peace and blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam and his family and his followers until the end of time. Ameen. Today's reflections are around some of the lessons that we can take from Surah Al-Fil, the chapter of the elephant from the Quran. And for many of us, this is probably a story that we've heard from our childhood or that we've been reminded of many times over the years. And even though that's the case, I feel that there's still benefit in having this reflection at this point. And hopefully that will become clear as we begin to move through the conversation, inshallah. And just to open it, I want to say that there are things, many things in fact, that we face in life that are difficulties or challenges that we don't really understand. And that is part of recognizing that we are human beings, that there's limits to our knowledge, there's limits to our capacity, there's limits to our ability to engage with all kinds of different things, and that's okay. And in recognizing that Allah exists, and recognizing that there is a creator, that there is a sustainer, one to whom we all return, in recognizing that, we also recognize our limitations at some level. And so sometimes we face struggles that we can't understand. Maybe it's a life struggle, problem that we're facing inside of our family, a relationship that fell apart, a loss, maybe violence that we've been exposed to. And we have a hard time processing that. And also sometimes there's ideas that are hard to process as well. And I think that especially for many modern-oriented Muslims, for better or for worse, and whatever that word means, and all of that unpacking left for another time, the Surah of Al-Fil is something that many people struggle with. And so I just want to acknowledge in the beginning that there's things that we don't understand. And just because maybe we're not familiar with an elephant, an army of elephants being destroyed by birds dropping stones on them, doesn't mean that it can't happen. And because it's in the Quran, we believe without a doubt that it's true. And part of that process is that we have to learn and teach ourselves how it is that we can trust in God. And having trust in God is one of the most important things that we must have in this life. It's very difficult to carry ourselves through the different things that we might face if we do not trust God. And in bringing that up, before we get into the story, there's two stories that I want to share as well, modern stories. One of them, I'm not sure if I shared it here before, but it's a story of Muhammad Ali, radiyallahu an, rahimahullah, the boxer. The boxer, Allah have mercy on him. Muhammad Ali, one of the stories that we heard about him from his daughter, Allah preserve her and bless his family. She told us this story that one time she was with her father, and they were in a hotel. And, you know, they were just having conversation, they were hanging out, and all of a sudden, an earthquake started. You know, it's not really what you would expect, right? But there's an earthquake that starts. And as the earthquake starts and the room starts shaking and everything, she said her father immediately, he ran to the window and he put his hands on the window and he said, "Shake him up, Allah, I'm ready to go. Shake him up, Allah, I'm ready to go." Now that's funny as a, you know, like you're just like, subhanAllah, that's Muhammad Ali, you know what I mean? It's funny as an immediate response, But it's extremely profound if you really start thinking about it. Right? That's an earthquake. And what is his immediate response? His immediate response is, Allah, I'm on your side. Whatever you're doing, Allah, I'm with you. I'm ready. Like wherever you're taking me, if it's my time to go, if it's not my time to go, if it's an earthquake, if it's a flood, if it's a loss of a job, whatever it is, I'm with you, Allah. So this was his immediate response. That's a very deep response of trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second story is one that I just heard this week. I was sitting with a friend of mine from this community, this greater Orange County community, who was telling me a story from when one of the important things that happened in his early days in business. They had their business and they wanted to expand into a bigger building. And when they went to go expand into this bigger building, they found this property that was for sale, and it looked like the perfect property. We're going to make this move up. We just need to figure out how we're going to do it. And he's like, I sat down with my partner. We planned all of it, and we figured out how it is that we're going to make this move. And then we went to the person who was selling the property, and we said, okay, here we go. And he knew the guy, and he's like, here we go. Here's our plan. Here's what we can do. And the guy just looks at him. He's like, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I just sold it. And he said when he experienced that, he felt to himself like, he said, I was angry. You know, that was the property, and we put all this work in, and everything was going. It was going to be the big move for our business and everything else. He said, and the guy who sold it, who was an Arab Christian, not even a Muslim, Arab Christian, he recited the verse from the Quran to him. He looked at him, he was like, you know so-and-so? Perhaps it is that you hate something and it's good for you, and perhaps it is that you love something and it's bad for you. He actually, in Arabic, recited the verse to him. Non-Muslim guy. And he said, subhanAllah, when I heard the verse, I was like, okay. And then very shortly thereafter, they found a different property that was actually better and cheaper and better location. Everything about it was better. And that was the one that worked out, right? But we have to have trust in Allah that there's things that are going on that Allah is ordaining that are beyond our understanding and beyond our control. And this, of course, is also one of the lessons of the story of Musa and Khidr, radiyallahu anhu wa alayhi salam, that we have in Surah Al-Kahf, in the chapter of the cave that people read, inshallah, on Jum'ah. So saying all of that, we go into the story of the elephant. Now, part of why the story of the elephant in Surah Al-Fil is so important is because Allah said so. And again, part of it is understanding that if Allah told us that this is important, there's a reason why this is important, even if I don't understand it immediately. Part of the other thing that Allah told us is that in the Quran, He has given us the similitudes of everything. If we were to use like a bigger, kind of more philosophical term, we could say that Allah has told us in the Quran that He has given us the archetypes of everything. Which is to say that the book, the Quran itself, is an archetypical book in that it lays out the framework that everything else is going to fall under. Which means there's likeliness. It means there's going to be a story in the Quran. You're going to see, if you pay attention to that story and the figures in the story and all of the details, you're going to see those same things play themselves out in other things everywhere in your life. That's why Allah put it there. Not just not just randomly there's one story here and one story there or something like that. But these stories are stories that repeat themselves. As we always say, history repeats itself. There's certain places in history that particular model is going to keep coming over and over and over again. The story of the chapter of the elephants and the battle of the elephants that happened outside of Mecca in the year of the birth of the Prophet ﷺ is one of those archetypical stories. And so just to kind of refresh it a little bit, and we'll see even in the life of the Prophet ﷺ why that's important in a moment. Just to refresh it a little bit, what happened? Essentially, you have a very strong Christian empire in Eastern Africa, Abyssinia. And there was an incident leading up to this. There were a number of incidents where Christians were oppressed in the Yemen area. And so that Abyssinian empire went in and occupied that area, and they took it over. And there was this man named Abraha who was in charge of that area. Okay? And he wanted to build a church that was going to rival the Kaaba. Because the Arabs, they're all going to the Kaaba. And now I'm in Yemen and I want them to come to my place. Of course, there's a religious benefit to this, but there's also economic benefit to this, just for, we understand that. So he wants to build this massive church and bring everyone to it. Long story short, it doesn't work. The Arabs, they don't leave their traditions. They want to continue to go to the Kaaba, and the church doesn't work. So some things occurred, some sort of disrespect maybe to that building and so on and so forth. And Abraha decides that he's going to march on Mecca and destroy the Kaaba. Because if he destroys the Kaaba, then now there's nothing left to distract the Arabs and they're going to come to the church. This is his reasoning. It's probably not the best reasoning in the world, but nonetheless, he's going to go and destroy it. And he takes a massive army out with elephants in the army. There's differences amongst the tafasir, how many elephants were there. It's not really the point, but there were elephants in the army. And the Arabs, this is the point, were not accustomed to elephants being in an army. That was not something that they were used to seeing, right? So there was this weaponry, so to speak, that was beyond what the people were accustomed to. And so he begins this march to Mecca. But if you think about it, he's a person now, he's an outsider. It's not easy to go through the desert and find where you're trying to go. And so one of the things that we find in this story is that there were Arabs who along the way decided that they were going to side with Abraha and lead him to Mecca. Whenever the Muslims are at their weakest, it's because people inside of the community betray the community. This is a very important issue. It's not something that we talk about as much anymore, but this is it's a really important issue. People can be wherever they're going to be religiously. Maybe someone is not praying as much, maybe they're not fasting as much, maybe they're not as dedicated to certain areas of the practice of the religion. But when it comes to the honor and the rights of the Muslims, you don't sell out other Muslims to people who are against Islam. And this is, although the Quraysh and the Arabs at that time were not Muslim yet, the reason why Abraha was able to reach there is because people were traitors. They betrayed their people. And up until that time, even later on, there was a grave of a particular person who betrayed the Arabs, who the Arabs used to go by and throw stones at his grave. And this is a reminder to us, like either you stand on principle or you fall. It's not going to be good in the long term. So he gets there and eventually he's outside of Mecca. And a meeting is made for him between him, Abraha, the general, and the leader of Mecca at that time, which is who? Abdul Muttalib, the grandfather of the Prophet ﷺ. That's significant. It's significant. There's so many lessons just in the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ. If we were to look, who was his father Abdullah, and who was his mother Amina, and who was his grandfather Abdul Muttalib, and who are all these people going back in the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ, there are really important lessons there. And the reason why I'm emphasizing this is that we live in a country that erases history. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes it's just a consequence of the culture. But we as a people cannot be people that forget our history. We cannot forget where we came from. Every single person in this room has a story that's unique, and every single person in this room has a story that's probably miraculous at some point in it. This happened with their aunts and their uncles and their cousins and their grandfathers and their relatives and their ancestors and so on and so forth. We cannot forget our history. It's important to sit down with our elders. It's important to sit down with the people who have come before us and the people who know more about our families and our legacies and figure out who was who and what went on there. Not so that we can be ethnocentric or groupist or anything like that, just so we can know who we are. Because if we don't know who we are, there's no way we can do anything for anyone else. One of the great leaders of Islam in America, one time he said that if you don't know your own people and love your own people, there's no way anyone else is going to respect you. They're not going to respect you. They're not going to give you any dignity. You have to know yourself and love yourself. So Abdul Muttalib comes out and he has he's a strong person. He's very impressive. So he comes out in front of Abraha, and Abraha says, you can speak. And he tells him, there's some camels that I had that you guys stole. I want my camels back. Imagine the scene. Like everyone in Mecca's afraid. They don't know what's going to happen. We're going to get destroyed, so on and so forth. And then he comes out and he tells them, the elephants are there, this army's there. He comes out, he says, okay, you can speak. He says, you took my camels. I need my camels back. Abraha looks at him, he said, when you came out to me, I respected you and I had some awe for you when I saw you. And now that you've opened your mouth, you fell in your honor in front of me. This is his response to him, right? So Abdul Muttalib, he just looks at him and he tells him, the camels have their owner and the Kaaba has its owner who will protect it. That's it. That's the end of that conversation. He says, the camels are mine, the Kaaba's Allah's. Even though these were people that had you know, they weren't all believers in the oneness of God. They had an understanding of Allah as a single God, right? And so he tells them the camels have their Lord, that's me, I'm responsible. The Kaaba has its Lord, Allah is responsible. That's it. And he walks away. And he leaves and he makes dua, and then they go into the outskirts of Mecca. What's really interesting about that, and one of the parallels, I just had a conversation with a brother in the office who came back from Palestine recently. And we were talking about the siege on Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa and the resistance of the Palestinians, and then the reopening of the Masjid Al-Aqsa for the prayers. And he said that one of the things we have to realize as a people and as a community is that they led a dignified and organized resistance for 12 days straight. And that saved Salah in the Masjid Al-Aqsa for all of us. We have a debt on our shoulders to the people of Palestine who waged this resistance in such an honorable and dignified way. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them strength. Inshallah. So Abdul Muttalib led, this is a dignified resistance. Whatever is going to happen, it's going to happen, and I'm standing up straight. He walks back and he goes, and they leave it. Now you wonder, like, what is going to happen, right? What is going to happen? We all know what happens. Then the elephant, you know, they tell them to come into the city, and the elephant stops. This is why I said the archetypes matter. They go to march into the city, the elephant stops. They start beating the elephant, get it to move, so on and so on. It won't move. They turn it away from the city, it'll move. They turn it the other direction, it'll move. They turn it the other direction, it'll move. But towards the city, it won't move. Now the archetypes, when you have them strong in your head, you see them play out in different places. Look what the Prophet ﷺ said when they went to try to make Umrah right before the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Right before the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, a very important instant in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. The Muslims are going to Mecca, they're trying to make the Umrah, and then what happens is the camel of the Prophet ﷺ, Al-Qaswa, stopped and wouldn't move. And look at the Prophet ﷺ's loyalty as a person. Like, look at the character of this beautiful person, sallallahu alayhi. His loyalty extends to his camel. His camel stops and everyone starts saying, oh, the camel's disobeying, it's not going to move, it's stopping from its movement. And the Prophet ﷺ said, it didn't stop from its movement, and that's not her character. He said, she's not disobeying, and it's not her character to disobey. Rather, she was held by the one who held the elephant. Look at his immediate response. She was held by the one who held the elephant. Meaning Allah. It's Allah who inspired the camel to not move anymore. It's Allah who inspired the elephant not to move anymore. So he said, I'm not moving from here. And then from that is where they started to have the meetings and the negotiations, and the Treaty of Hudaybiyah was passed, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called it Fatham Mubina. We gave you a manifest victory, clear victory, right? But who stopped the camel? The one who stopped the elephant. So the story is in the person's mind, in the Prophet ﷺ's mind, and then it's able to be played out later on. So the Quran is a book that gives us these metaphors. And one of the things that we recognize is that people have always schemed. People have always plotted. People have always tried to get more money. People have always tried to get more power. People have always tried to get more land. And people have also done something else. They've always died. The amazing thing about the religion of Islam is that this is the religion of Allah. Not that it's about justice, not that it's about mercy, not that it's about, you know, all of these other beautiful things, which are all part of Islam. But the thing that makes Islam amazing is that it's the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Think about history. Think about how the Mongols came into the Muslim lands and ravaged them. Destroyed civilizations, just killed people, destroyed civilizations, all of this stuff. And then literally a couple generations later, they became Muslim. Just think about how do you even make sense of that? Think about some of these areas that were under communist rule during the Soviet Union, Central Asian region, right? I've met people who said we used to live there and we used to keep pages of the Quran and like hide them in our cooking utensils and stuff, because it was illegal to have any Quran. It's illegal to talk anything about religion. People study underground. And what happens? Generations pass, Islam comes back. You have places in the Middle East, in North Africa, where people are not, they weren't allowed to wear hijab. Generation, just our parents' generation, they didn't know how to pray. And then Islam is back. Because it's the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So people can do whatever they're going to do. They can scheme whatever they want to scheme. But in the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the birds and the stones fell and the army was gone. And that can happen in any number of other ways as well, in different expressions, following the same archetype. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد عباد الله أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله. I remind myself and everyone to have God consciousness in all affairs. After the Salat of Jum'ah, we're going to be having a funeral, Salat al-Janazah, the funeral prayer for Sister Ruqayya Ahmed. People are encouraged to stay behind for that as soon as we finish, inshallah. And also please make dua for those who are ill and passed away. Brother Sulaiman Mansour, Ibrahim, Saida, Nafu, Rabia, Imran, Khadija Ali, Brother Rafi, Javed Siddiqui, and Latifa Khanum are all ill. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them shifa and give patience to their families. And Brother Sayyiduddin passed away. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him and make his questioning easy. We face, as a community in America, one of the challenges that we face today that seems overwhelming is something that you could call the Islamophobia industry, where literally tens of millions of dollars have been spent on a regular basis in order to make Islam look worse and change the way that people feel about Islam. And the point that I want to bring with that is just that مَا يَعْلَمُ جُنُودَ رَبِّكَ إِلَّا هُ. Nobody knows those who are going to be soldiers or those who will be in the aid of the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except for Him. You don't know. What's important is to ask the question, to not lose hope, and to ask the question that Abdul Muttalib must have had to ask himself. So Abdul Muttalib has an army now that's coming towards him. He has a town of people that he's responsible for. He has family, he has friends, he has all of these things, right? What is Abdul Muttalib's number one question? What is my responsibility? What is my direct, immediate, actionable responsibility in all of this whole thing? So he goes out to Abraha and he tells him, give me my camels back. That's his responsibility. That's the thing that I'm responsible for. All of these major things, all I can do is take my step. Now that is not to say that you don't take your step. Every single one of us has to take our steps. Some people, their steps are going to be getting a halal income for their family and raising their children. Some people, their steps are going to be working in political activism, in social work, in cultural production, in helping those who are in need, and serving those who are hungry. Some of them, it's going to be, their action is just to take care of their younger brother, or to be good to their elderly parents who's ill, or whatever it might be. Everyone has actions that are in front of them. My point is that we cannot become so overwhelmed by fear and so overwhelmed by things that are outside of our control that we do not act. We act in what it is that we need to act in, and we trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of the rest, whether it's today or tomorrow or 50 or 100 years from now. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq. Oh Allah, we ask you to forgive us of our sins and our shortcomings. Oh Allah, forgive us of our sins, accept from us our deeds, enter us into paradise and keep us away from your punishment. Give us the good of this world and the next. Oh Allah, give us knowledge that benefits us and benefit us from that which you have taught us. Give food to those who are hungry, give shelter to those who are shelterless, give victory to those who are oppressed, give aid to those who are in need. Allahumma ighfir lana dhunubana wa israfana fi amrina wa thabbit aqdamana. Allahumma barik fina wa baynana wa alif bayna qulubina wa sufufina. Allahumma kun ma'ana wa la takun alayna. Unsur ikhwanana al-mustada'afina fi kulli makan. Iftah alayhim ya fattahu ya alim. Allahumma alimna ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا صالحا. اللهم تقبل منا واعف عنا وآتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وأقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر، الله أكبر.
الله.
لا إله إلا الله.
لا إله إلا الله محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. استووا اعتدلوا استقيموا. Straighten the lines, fill in the gaps, silence your cell phones. Fill in the first rows and those that come after them. استووا اعتدلوا. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان الله أكبر. السلام عليكم. السلام عليكم. أشهد أن لا إله أشهد أن محمدا علي إبراهيم بارك الله بارك لنا ربنا اغفر ذنوبنا الحمد لله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. استغفر الله استغفر الله. اللهم أنت السلام منك السلام. Right away? Okay, go ahead. Bismillah. The janazah now? Or you have an announcement? Bismillah. No, we'll do the janazah now after the announcement, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very quick announcement. We thank Sheikh Jamal for his khutbah today. And as you know, the fancy project's almost close to the end. It will be completed, inshallah, by Monday or Tuesday. And we have a few families like to invite you on August 19 for barbecue after Asr prayer here, inshallah. Please join them. And thank you for your patience again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Bismillah. So we have Sister Ruqayya Ahmed. Inshallah, we'll do the janazah now. As any of the family members can come to the front. So as a reminder, Salat al-Janazah is 4 takbirat. There's no ruku', no sujood, so you don't have to worry about the space between each other as much. Yeah. And after the first takbir, you can read Surah Al-Fatiha or you can read Thana. And then after the second one, the Salah Ibrahimiyya, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad, to the end of it. Then after the third one, you can make dua for the deceased, and it is a sister of ours, Allah have mercy on her. And then after the fourth one, we say salam, inshallah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. واغفر لحينا وميتنا وشاهدنا اللهم في الله ذنوب الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. اللهم اغفر لها يا رب العالمين. اللهم اغفر لها يا رب العالمين. اللهم اغفر لها يا رب العالمين. اللهم تقبل منها أحسن ما عملت. اللهم تجاوز عنها سيئاتها. اللهم ثبتها عند السؤال. اللهم ثبتها عند السؤال. اللهم اجعل قبرها روضة من رياض الجنة. اجعل قبرها روضة من رياض الجنة. اللهم ثبتها عند السؤال. Oh Allah, forgive her of her sins and her shortcomings, accept from her the best of the actions that she did. Oh Allah, accept from her the best of her deeds. Forgive her of her shortcomings. Oh Allah, make her firm when she is questioned. Oh Allah, make her firm when she is questioned. Oh Allah, make her garden a garden from the gardens of paradise. Make her grave a garden from the gardens of paradise. Make her grave a garden from the gardens of paradise. Oh Allah, give us all good endings and give patience to the family of the deceased. Allahumma ameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi sallam taslima kathira. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. For those who want to go and attend the burial, it will be at Westminster Memorial, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Please, if you double park, remove your